The Science of Mind. Ernest Holmes. Part 2. The Lessons. Lesson 1. Introduction. In presenting these lessons in mental science to the public, it is my desire to make it possible for anyone who cares to take the time to study them, to demonstrate the truths that will be discussed. It is, perhaps, hard to set down in writing a complete teaching in mental science that will not appear difficult to understand, but this could be said as well of any science, and the science of mind is no exception to the general rule. Science is knowledge of facts built around some proven principle. All that we know about any science is that certain things happen under certain conditions. Take electricity as an example. We know that there is such a thing as electricity. We have never seen it, but we know that it exists because we can use it. We know that it operates in a certain way and we have discovered the way it works. From this knowledge we go ahead and deduce certain facts about electricity, and, applying them to the general principle, we receive definite results. No one has ever seen the power or the energy that we call electricity, and the only proof we have that it really exists is that from it we receive light, heat and motive power. No one has ever seen any of the great causes that lie back of the manifestations of life, and perhaps no one ever will, but we know that such principles exist because we can use them. How laws are discovered. The discovery of a law is generally made more or less by accident, or by someone who, after careful thought and observation, has come to the conclusion that such a principle must exist. As soon as a law is discovered, experiments are made with it, certain facts are proved to be true, and in this way a science is gradually formulated, for any science consists of the number of known facts about any given principle. As more and more facts are gathered and proven, the science expands and gradually becomes accepted by all and used by those who understand it. In this way all of our sciences have been evolved until today we have the use of powers and unseen forces of which our ancestors never even dreamed. Proof of mind. This is true of the science of mind. No one has ever seen mind or spirit, but who could possibly doubt their existence? Nothing is more self-evident than that we live, and since we live, we must have life, yet who has ever seen this life? The only proof of life we have is that we live, and the only proof we have of mind is that we can think, so we are perfectly justified in believing that we have a mind and that we live. Where our thoughts go as we watch the processes of thought, we find that we think consciously, and we also find that something happens to our thoughts after we have thought them. For instance, they become memory. This proves that we have a deeper aspect of mind, which is called subjective, lying just below the threshold of the conscious. This subjective mind is the place where our thoughts go and from whence they eventually return to us again as memory. Observation proves this to be true, for it always happens this way. Observation has proven that the subjective mind is the seat of memory and that it contains mental pictures, or impressions, of all that has ever happened to the individual. As these mental impressions come to the surface of the conscious mind, they are called memories. Moreover, observation has shown that the subjective mind is the builder of the body. It has proven that it is not only the seat of memory, it is also the avenue through which instinctive man works. We mean by instinctive man that part of the individual which came with him when he was born, that inner something which makes him what he is. For instance, we do not have to consciously think to make the body function, so we say that the inner, or the instinctive, man, does this for us. This is true of most of the functions of the body. They appear to be automatic, they came with us and are nature's way of working through us. So we say that in the unconscious or the subconscious or the subjective, there is a silent process forever working away and always doing its duty, carrying on all of the unconscious activities of the body without effort on our part. Suggestion becomes memory. It has been observed that suggestions, planted in the subconscious, become memories, and eventually tend to externalize in the body. From this it has been deduced that the subconscious mind is the builder of the body and is the creative factor in man. It has also been proven that certain types of thought produce certain kinds of results. This shows that the subjective mind takes our suggestions and tends to act upon them, no matter what the suggestion may be. While the instinctive man, or the natural man, must be perfect, it is known that the thoughts of the conscious man may hinder instinctive action, through adverse suggestion. That is, conscious thought, acting as memory, may build a false condition in the body, which condition we call disease. Conscious thought may also erase this memory and thereby heal the disease. Through observations such as these, a science of the subjective mind has gradually been formulated, many facts have been put together, and, today, these facts constitute what we call the science of the subjective life in its relationship to mental healing. Mental medium. Through all, it has also been proven that thought operates in such a manner as to make it possible to convey mental impressions from one person to another, showing that there is a mental medium between all people. When we think of it, how could we talk with each other unless there were some kind of a medium through which we talked? We could not, and so we know that there really is such a medium. While there is a place where our bodies begin and leave off, as form, there does not appear to be a place where our thought leaves off. Indeed, the observations made and the facts gathered show that the medium between men's minds is omnipresent, that is, it seems to be everywhere present. Radio also shows this, for messages are sent out through some kind of a universal medium, and all that we can say of it is that we know the medium is there. So it is with mind, all that we can say is that everything happens just as though it were there. We have a perfect right, then, to say that such a medium exists. This opens up a far-reaching theory, for it leads to the conclusion that we are surrounded by a universal mind which is the medium of the communication of our thoughts. Perhaps this is the mind of God. Who knows? That it is there, we cannot doubt. Reading thought, other observations have shown even more wonderful possibilities. It is known that certain people can read our thoughts, even when we are not aware of the fact, showing that thought operates through a medium which is universal, or always present. This also shows that the medium is subjective, for it retains our thoughts and transmits them to others. This leads to the conclusion that what we call our subjective mind is really the use that we, as individuals, make of something which is universal. Perhaps, just as radio messages are operative through a universal medium, our thoughts are operative through the medium of a universal mind. Indeed, this has been believed for thousands of years by some of the deepest thinkers. Mental law. As we think of the medium of radio transmission in terms of law, so we should think of the mental medium in terms of law. For it must be the law of mental action. While we might think of it as the mind of God, we surely could not think of it as the Spirit of God, for the mental medium is automatic, while the Spirit must be self-knowing. We could not call the universal medium of mind God, any more than we could call electricity God. It is but one of the many attributes of God or the universe of life. It is the avenue through which God operates as law. The Word of God as law. Since man has a self-conscious mind, a subconscious mind and a body, we know that he is threefold in his nature. First, he is conscious mind or spirit, next, he is subconscious mind or mental law, and then, he is body. The conscious mind controls the subconscious, and in its turn, the subconscious controls the body. It is evident that man comes from God, life or nature, whichever we choose to call it. It is also evident that we can get from life only that which is in it. Man must partake of the divine nature if he comes from it or is made out of it. For what is true of the whole must also be true of any of its parts. Something cannot come from nothing, something must come from something, for nothing comes from nothing and nothing is the result, but man is something, else he could not declare himself, and since he is something, he must be made from, or come out of, something, and that something must be what we call God. Threefold nature of God. If we study the true nature of man, then, we shall have delved into the real nature of God, or first cause, from which man springs, and as we have found that man is threefold in his nature, so we must also deduce that God is threefold in his nature, that is, God is spirit, or self-knowingness, God is law and action, and God is result or body. This is the inner meaning of the teaching of the Trinity. But let us elaborate. God, as self-knowing spirit, means the divine being whom we have always thought of and believed in, the being to whom we have prayed and whom we have adored. God, as law, means the way in which the Spirit works. And law in this sense, would be the servant of the Spirit. God, as body, means the manifestation of the Spirit. We might put it in another form and say, there is the thing, the way that it works and the result of its work. Still another form would be to say, cause, medium and effect. Trinity of being. A trinity of being appears to run through all nature and all life. For instance, there is electricity, the way it works and its result, which is light or motive power. There is the seed, the creative medium of the soil and the plant. Turn it as we may, we are confronted with the necessity of a trinity of being. There must always be the thing, what it does and the way that it operates. Always a trinity runs through life and through everything in it. But through the trinity of God and man there runs a self-conscious spirit, and this is what distinguishes man from the brute, or from a purely mechanical creation, and is the only thing that could make God a self-knowing power. Conscious mind in God and man in God, and in man there is a power that, while it may not transcend law, yet consciously uses it for definite purposes. In God this knowledge must be complete, but in man it is, of course, but dimly perceived. Jesus, the wisest man who ever lived, said that God and man are one in real nature, and no doubt this understanding was what gave him his marvelous power. Unity. It is well to remember that the enlightened in every age have taught that back of all things there is one unseen cause. In studying the teachings of the great thinkers, we find that a common thread runs through all, the thread of unity. There is no record of any deep thinker, of any age, who taught duality. One of the great teachings of Moses was, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord," and the saying, "I am that I am," was old when Moses was yet unborn, for it had been inscribed over the temple entrances for generations. We may go back much farther than Moses and find the same teaching, for it crops out from the literatures and sayings of the wise of all ages. Jesus taught this when he said, "I and the Father are one," and in the saying, "The Father that dwelleth in me." This teaching of unity is the chief cornerstone of the sacred scriptures of the East as well as of our own sacred writings. It is today the mainspring of the teachings of the modern philosophies, such as Christian Science, Divine Science, the Unity teachings, the New Thought movement, the occult teachings, the esoteric or inner teachings, and even of much that is taught under the name of psychology. Without this basic teaching of unity, these movements would have but little to offer. Science has found nothing to contradict this teaching, and it never will, for the teaching is self-evident. Worship of God, that there is a God or first cause no one can doubt. That the being whom we call God really exists from eternity to eternity is self-evident. In every age people have worshipped some kind of deity. It is true that as the evolution of man has progressed, the idea of God has expanded, and the more that people have realized of life, and of nature and her laws, the clearer has been the concept of deity, for this is the logical result of an unfolding mentality. Many gods. The first stages of human thought brought out the idea that there were many gods, the natural outcome of a life which experienced many kinds of misfortune and difficulties. As there were many gods, so there were many devils or evil powers, but as the understanding of man grew, he began to realize that there could not be so many powers, since the cause back of everything must be a unity, else it could not exist. More than one power would indicate a universe divided against itself, and this kind of a universe could not hold together. However, it has taken a long time to come to this conclusion, and in the stages between many weird ideas have been formulated and believed in. At first there were many gods and many devils, But as thought progressed, this was narrowed down to one God and one devil or evil power. Duality has been believed in since time immemorial, and, indeed, is still believed in by many. By duality we mean a belief in more than one power back of all things. Belief in duality, its results. The belief in duality has robbed theology of power and has polluted philosophy with untruths. It has divided science against itself and has made countless thousands go through life with saddened hearts. Duality in theology. The belief in duality has given rise in theology to the idea of a God and a devil, each with equal power to impose upon man a blessing or a curse, and men have worshipped a devil just as truly as they ever worshipped God. Even today this monstrous thought is robbing men of their birthright to happiness and a sense of security. Even today, and openly, men still teach that there is an evil power in the universe, that there is damnation to the souls of those who do not fall down and worship, they know not what. But the time is rapidly coming when such teachings will be thrown on the scrap heap and numbered among the delusions of a frantic mentality. It has been the habit of many religious teachers of all times to hold the crowd in awe before a mighty throne of condemnation and utter destruction, till the poor, ignorant population have rent the air with their lamentations of complete despair. This, indeed, was a good method to compel the attention with the hope of salvation through some sacred rites to be performed by those whom God had appointed. In justice to such an awful performance, we would better give to these religious teachers the benefit of the doubt and say that they themselves have believed in the atrocious teachings which they have so unhesitatingly given out. Be this as it may, the time has now come for a clearer understanding of the true nature of the deity, in whom we all believe, and whom we all seek to know and to understand. That there is a God no sane person would deny, that there could be a God of vengeance and hate, having all the characteristics of a huge man in a terrible rage, no person can well believe and keep his sanity. We will say, then, and without mincing matters in the least, that the most we had better believe about such a God is that there is no such being. Duality in philosophy. As the belief in duality has robbed theology of its greater message, so it has robbed much of the philosophy of the ages of a greater truth. For in philosophy the belief in duality has created a confusion that is almost as great as that in theology. It has made a philosophy of good and evil, in which men have come to believe. True philosophy in every age, however, has perceived that the power back of all things must be one power, and the clearer the thought of unity, the greater has been the philosophy. It has shone forth as a beacon light toward which weary souls have traveled, hoping to find reality. To the great philosophers of all times we owe the advancement of the world, for they have been the great way-showers and helpers of mankind. In reverence, we humbly bow before them as messengers of the Most High, for God has spoken through their lips and has told us that we are not creatures of the dust, but that we are divine beings, made in the image of perfection and with an endless destiny. Duality and science. The belief in duality has robbed science, in that it has created spirit and matter, i.e., a dual universe. However, modern science is rapidly giving out a different idea of the universe. For with the passing of matter into a hypothetical and theoretical ether there is but little left on which to hang any belief in materialism. We now are told that all matter is in a constant state of flow, that it all comes from one source, and that it will eventually return to that source. And awakening the world is waking up to the fact that things are not at all what they appear to be, that matter and form are but the one substance appearing and disappearing, and that form is simply used to express something which is formless, but self-conscious life. What this life is, science does not attempt to explain. This has been left to theology, and whether or not it has been delegated to those competent to handle the problem, time alone will tell. Philosophy leads man's thought. Philosophy has always transcended science and always will, for philosophy deals with causes while science deals with effects. A scientist observes the result of nature's work while a philosopher speculates as to its cause. Many things which philosophy has taught for thousands of years are today being demonstrated by science. The two should really go hand in hand, for one deals with causes and the other with effects. True philosophy and true science will someday meet on a common basis, and, working together, will give to the world a theology of reality. Then, indeed, will God go forth anew into creation. A deep inquiry. The deep thinkers of antiquity as well as the philosophers of all ages have meditated long and earnestly on the nature of the divine being. Knowing that there could be but one ultimate reality back of all things, they have pondered deeply upon the nature of that reality, and it is a significant fact that all of the greatest thinkers have come to about the same conclusion. The great difficulty that has beset the path of true philosophy has been the necessity of explaining a multiplied creation with a unitary cause. Nothing is more evident than that we live in a world of constant change. Things and forms come and go continuously, forms appear only to disappear, things happen only to stop happening, and it is no wonder that the average person, unused to trying to discover causes, is led to feel and to believe that there is a multiple cause back of the world of things. The philosophers of all times have had to meet the difficulty of explaining how one cause could manifest itself in a multiplicity of forms without dividing or breaking up the one. This has not been easy, yet, when understood, the explanation becomes very apparent. The voice of God in creation. The argument has been something after this manner: the ultimate cause back of all things must be one, since life cannot be divided against itself. The infinite must be one, for there could not be two infinites. Whatever change takes place must take place within the one, but the one must be changeless, for, being one and only, it cannot change into anything but itself. All seeming change, then, is really only the play of life upon itself. And all that happens must happen by and through it. How do these things happen through it? By some interaction upon itself. What would be the nature of this interaction? It could not be physical, as we understand physics, but would have to be by the power of the inner word of life, that is, the voice of God, God standing for the first great and only cause of all that is. The Word of God. It is impossible to conceive of anything other than the Word of God being that which sets power in motion. This is why the Scriptures announce that, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. All things were made by Him, and without Him was not anything made that was made." God speaks and it is done. It is evident that first cause must be self-existent, that is, it must be causeless. Nothing came before that which was first, and, while it may be a little hard to understand this, yet we can all grasp the fact that whatever the being is whom we call God, it must be self-existent. Spirit knows itself. God speaks and it is done, but if God speaks, His word must be law. The word of God is also the law of God. God is word, God is law, and God is spirit. This is self-evident. We arrive at the conclusion that God, as spirit, is self-conscious life. That spirit is conscious is proven by the fact that we have evidence of this consciousness strewn through all time and space. God must know that God is. This is the inner meaning of the teaching of the I Am, handed down from antiquity. The Spirit is the power that knows itself, is one of the oldest sayings of time. Law, servant of the word Spirit, knows itself, but the law is the servant of the Spirit and is set in motion through its word. It is known that all law is some form of universal force or energy. Law does not know itself, law only knows to do. It is, therefore, the servant of the Spirit. It is the way that the Spirit works, and is the medium through which it operates to fulfill its purpose. Did God make law? As it is not possible to conceive a time when law did not operate, it is impossible to conceive that it was ever created. Therefore, law must be coexistent and co-eternal with spirit. We might say that law is one of the attributes of spirit. The Spirit operates through law, which is some part of its own nature. Therefore, all action must be some action of spirit as law. The word of spirit sets its purposes in motion through the law, and since the law must be as infinite as the spirit, we could not think of a time when it was not, or a time when it would cease to be, either can we imagine the law ever failing to operate when set in motion. We have, then, an infinite spirit and an infinite law, intelligence and the way that it works, God, working through law, which is unfailing and certain. Forms of spirit or creation. Next, we come to the forms of spirit, which forms we call matter. But what is matter? Science tells us that matter is eternal and indestructible, that, at first, it is an invisible cosmic stuff, and that it gradually takes form through some law working within it. The worlds were formed by the power of His Word. We know that right now worlds are being formed in the vast reaches of space, and worlds are also ceasing to be, that is, they are gradually losing their form. In this way creation is eternally going on. This proves a definite purposefulness, a definite law set in motion to work out this purposefulness, and a definite form as the result of the operation of this purposefulness. In other words, it shows that there is an intelligence inherent in the universe which knows what it is doing, and how to do it, and which knows why it does it, and that there is a law obeying its will. It also shows that there is something upon which it operates. This something we will call matter in its unformed state. Perhaps this is the ether of science. It is impossible to say, but surely there is something upon which the spirit works. The teaching of the great thinkers of all times is that we live in a threefold universe of spirit, soul and body, of intelligence, substance and form. Meaning of creation. With this in mind, we shall be better able to realize that creation does not mean making something out of nothing, but means the passing of substance into form through a law which is set in motion by the word of spirit. Creation is eternally going on, for we could not imagine a time when the activity of spirit would cease. It is the same yesterday, today, and forever. The whole action of spirit must be within itself, upon the law, which is also within itself, and upon the universal stuff, or matter, which is also within itself. The three must in reality be one, hence, the Trinity. The word alone is conscious. One of the main facts to bear in mind is, that, of the three attributes of spirit, the word alone is conscious of itself. The law is force, and matter is simply stuff ready to take form. Since law or energy is proven to be timeless, that is, not added to or taken from, and since matter is known to be of the same nature, we have a right to suppose that both matter and law are coexistent and co-eternal with spirit. But spirit alone is conscious. Law, of itself, is only a force, and matter has no mind of its own. Law is not a thinker but is a doer, while matter cannot think but is thought upon. The thought of God. Just what is meant by the word of God? This must mean the inner consciousness, or self-knowingness, of spirit, the thought of God. The word thought seems to mean more to us than any other word. It seems to cover the meaning better, for we know that thought is an inner process or consciousness. The thought of God must be back of all that really exists, and, as there are many things that really exist, there must be many thoughts in the mind of the infinite. This is logical to suppose, for an infinite mind can think of an infinite number of ideas. Hence the world of multiplicity or many things. But the world of multiplicity does not contradict the world of unity, for the many live in the one. Eternal creation. There may be confusion in the minds of men but not in the thought of God, and so we have a universe expressing the limitless ideas of a limitless mind, and without confusion. We have, then, a cosmic world, and an infinite and endless creation. This is the inner meaning of those mystic words, world without end. Creation always was and always will be. Things may come and things may go, but creation goes on forever, for it is the thought of God coming into expression. This is, indeed, a wonderful concept, for it means that there will always be a manifestation of the divine ideas. We need not worry about whether it will ever cease. It cannot cease so long as God exists, and since God will be forever, there will forever be some kind of manifestation. The universe is alive. The universe is alive with action and power, with energy and life. We touch it only in parts, but from these parts we do catch a glimpse of the nature of the whole. He hath not left himself without a witness. Modern science is revealing many things that the great thinkers of the ages have announced. One of them is that matter is in a constant state of flow. It is like a river flowing in, out, and on. It is operated upon by an unseen force or law and takes its form through some agency which science supposes to be the will and purpose of spirit. This we call the Word. All things were made by the Word. Conclusion: to sum up, there is a power in the universe which acts as though it were intelligent, and we may assume that it is. There is an activity in the universe which acts as law. We know this to be true. And there is a formless stuff in the universe, forever taking form, and forever changing its form. This also is self-evident. We have every right, then, to assume that there is a threefold nature of being which we will call spirit, soul, and body. We will think of the spirit as the great actor, the soul as the medium of its action, and the body as the result of this action. We will think of spirit as the only conscious actor, the only power that knows itself. We will think of soul as a blind force, obeying the will of spirit, and we will think of body as the effect of the spirit, working through law, thus producing form. We will say that neither the law nor the stuff from which form comes has any conscious intelligence, but must, because of its nature, take the form of the Word. This simplifies the whole matter and enables us to see that in the entire universe one power alone really acts, the power of the Word of God.